Hi guys, it's Nicki. I am coming to you with season 2, episode 12 of the Handmaid's Tale called Postpartum. Okay, so it was like a lot going on in this episode. It wasn't, but it was, and it was like what was going on. It was more going on than the last episode we watched, but it all made sense to me, I guess is what I'm trying to say. So let's get right into this video. So we start out with Serena has finally got what she's been dying for, like the whole reason she did this, which was a baby. She wanted that baby, so she finally has the baby in her arms, you know, in her nursery. She finally has everything she's dreamed of. So, you know, Serena's all smiles through at the beginning of this episode, so she's really happy about it. So then the next scene we go to, which is completely different from Serena being happy about the baby, to then we go to June, who's actually the mother of the baby, who's pumping milk, and she's doing it in front of two aunts, and then Aunt Lydia comes in, and Aunt Lydia says, you know, that she knows June has been through a lot, and that you know, the miraculous thing that June did with having the baby out in the woods when she was just going on a little trip. So, you know, they covered that up again. Last time, you know, they covered it up, and they've done it again. They've played a spin on what actually was happening with June. So then the aunts let Aunt Lydia know, like, this milk is less than what it was, you know, the other day. Like, it's not a lot of milk. And Aunt Lydia's like, she completely understands that, you know, but they can't do anything about it because it's all based on Mrs. Waterford's wishes. So June reminds Aunt Lydia, she says, why is that? Like, she reminds Aunt Lydia, you promised that you would take care of my baby. You said you would look after the baby. So Aunt Lydia, told June, you know, we're gonna do what's best for the baby, or whatnot. So then Aunt Lydia tells June, you know, you've already had several households that have been wanting to get with you, you know, because I guess because they know she can have a baby. So households that need a handmaid are wanting June to come and be their handmaid. And I think the Webbers were one of those households, and they sent over bran muffins for Aunt Lydia to like bribe her to, I guess, get June to come or whatever. And so she offers June one, which y'all should have gave it all to June. She did the work, but they offered June one, and she's like, I deserve a whole cake. And Aunt Lydia was like, be humble, or don't be greedy or something. You won't get anything. And so June takes a muffin, and she's like, oh, a bran muffin. So the next scene, we see Commander Waterford, and he's in there. He's speaking to two of his two other commanders, and he's talking about, you know, just everything that's happened. And Nick walks in, which I was like, oh, so y'all not even gonna like have an episode dedicated to like Nick being away or anything? Like, he's just gonna show up and we're not gonna find out what he went through or what happened or everything. So he tells them, you know, Nick is the real hero for us being able to get this baby, because he ran into two overzealous guardians, and he protected the handmaid and the child and everything. And I was like, I don't know, I was kind of disappointed in that, because I was wanting to see, you know, what Nick went through or what was gonna, I don't know, it was just kind of lackluster as far as them bringing him back like that and not really giving a concrete, solid explanation on, so what happened to like, I don't know. Tell me what you think. So anyways, Nick, the two commanders leave, and Nick has this painting, this portrait, and the commander wants Nick to put it up, and he promises Nick good things, because he's like, we always look out for each other and all that. And so Nick is putting up the portrait, and it is of the Commander Waterford, Serena, and the baby, and which is Nick's baby. And he's saying like, oh, it's inspiring, isn't it, Nick, you know, looking at the portrait. And Nick is like, you know, blessed be and everything. And I feel like he was kind of rubbing that in Nick's face, because he knows that's Nick's baby. Like, who else could it be? He knows that's Nick's baby, which he does know, because Serena pretty much told him last week exactly how June got pregnant. So then we go to The next scene is Mrs. Waterford is talking to Eden, and she tells her everything, you know, works. And she opens up her, you know, the baby's clothes. It's a trunk, and she opens it up, and she has all these baby clothes and everything. And she tells Eden everything works out, you know, all the sacrifice, all of that is worth it, because Eden is holding a baby for him. And she's like, it's all worth it now that she has the baby. So then we go to Rita, who comes in with a bottle. And she reluctantly tells Mrs. Waterford that the supply is running low and that the milk, she doesn't finish the statement, but what she's trying to tell Mrs. Waterford is when the mother is not around the baby, the milk starts to run dry, which is what the aunts are saying as well. Like, because they're, you know, she's not around the baby and everything. And Mrs. Waterford, she's, she doesn't want to hear it. So she cuts Rita off. Sorry about that. She cuts Rita off, but you know, she knows what she's supposed to do. So then we cut to the next scene, and it is Aunt Lydia is leading June to a room, and June is like, where are we going? And Aunt Lydia is just like, follow me. So then June sees Isaac, and she's like, because you know, she knows Isaac from working with Mr. Waterford, Commander Waterford. So she's like, what's going on? And so she goes into this room, and it's Nick and Commander Waterford there. And then the Commander Waterford moves, and she sees the baby. And June starts walking away because she already knows what they're trying to do. So June is like, no. And she starts trying to leave. And, excuse me, Aunt Lydia tells her, no, like, you have to be around this baby because we need you to start supplying more milk. And this might help her lactate. And so Commander Waterford is like, the baby's offered meet baby Nicole. And I'm like, really? Like, which one of y'all named this baby Nicole? Like, that's some shady mess right there. But whatever. I was just like, did Serena do that to like stick it to Commander Waterford? And then Aunt Lydia didn't make it any better because she's like, oh, what a beautiful name, and she looks just like her father, which, so now she has her, you're pretty much saying she has her father's name, and on top of that, she looks just like him. So it's like, oh, awkward, Aunt Lydia, but she don't be knowing. Aunt Lydia don't know what's going on. So then, Aunt Lydia, so then June starts to lactate. You know, she starts to lactate. She's put, you know, the milk spots on her shirt because she is being around the baby now or whatever, and her body is reacting to it. So then they're like, oh, that's perfect. And the commander, the way he was looking at her, he's just so creepy well, all the time, but sometimes more than others. Other times more than others. But so then Aunt Lydia steps in. So June says, can she nurse the baby? And he was looking like, I don't know, Commander Waterford, she's asking him that. And he's looking like, I don't know. And Aunt Lydia tells him that it would be good because it would keep her flowing and it would be good for the baby and everything. Because June looks back at Aunt Lydia. And Aunt Lydia has her faults. But when it comes to the children and everything, she's really all about the children. So she tried, and she talked to the commander to tell him, you know, it's for the best for your child. Like, stop thinking, you know, I know this is a difficult situation for all of y'all, but stop thinking about yourselves and do what's best for the baby and everything. So so it works. And so anyways, so then June has to go up to Commander Waterford, and she said, because Aunt Lydia says June would love to be of service or whatever. So then June has to swallow her pride again. And because you remember she had to do that last time when she wanted to come home. She had to swallow her pride and thank the commander for allowing her to come home. And now this time she has to say, may I be worthy, to the commander so that she could come home. So, yeah. Okay, so then we see the next scene. And plus he you know, it strokes the commander's ego to have her talk to him like that, So then the next scene, we see Judith's packed up, and she's in, you know, they even got the girl a red suitcase. I was like, y'all tripping. But they even have her a red suitcase. So she's back home now, and everything. And then we see Serena is, she's all upset because June is there, and she's like, did you let her touch my baby? Which Serena, and he's like, no, I promised I wouldn't, and I didn't. She's talking to Fred. And, you know, she's just livid that June is there. And he's pretty much like, you don't have to make this work. And she was like, she's not going to go near the baby. You know, she's going to nurse from her room. She's not to be near the baby. She's not to touch the baby. She doesn't do any of that or whatever. And he was like, just don't make it difficult. And then when she says all that, he tells her, you know, mother knows best, and then he leaves. I think that was a little jab at Serena, because you know, she's not the mother. So I think he was doing little jabs this whole episode. Like, he was saying little things this whole episode or whatever. So the next scene is with Emily. So Aunt Lydia has taken Emily to Commander Lawrence's house, and she tells Emily, like, listen, ma'am, we've tried to get you to 4 different houses, and they've all said no. So you need to pull yourself together and behave and get in this house. It's always funny to me how they talk to them like they're children. But she says, you need to get in this house and behave. Like, Commander Lawrence is very important. He helped the economy and everything. He's you know, he's important to it. He's a nice figure, you know, he's a good figure. He was the architect behind the whole economy. So he's brilliant and he's important and yada yada yada. And she says, what do you have to say for yourself? And Emily is just like, well, I'm thinking, if he's so brilliant and he's so important, why would he want me? You know, why would he say yes to me or whatever? Which she made sense. She made some sense. So then the Martha opens the door, and they've done this to Martha like they did Janine as far as taking out her eye. But the Martha opens the door, and I'm like, oh, she's real. Like, she remind me of one of those, you know how some people have housekeepers or maids and everything, but they pretty much run that house. So they have no respect for the owner, even though, you know, they work for the owners, but they don't have any respect for them. That's what this Martha reminds me of. She has no respect for them. She's like, come in or whatever. The way she was walking and carrying her, like she's the complete opposite from Rita is what I'm trying to say. So anyways, they go into this house, and the house is weird. Like, I don't know any of the other commanders' houses that look like this. They have paintings, and they have paintings with naked people, and they have all types of stuff going on in this household with art and everything. And then, you know, even Aunt Lydia was like, what in the, you know, what is going on here? So then Commander Lawrence comes down, and like, he is looking at Emily, and it was almost in like a predator way, like the way he was looking at her, and he didn't even acknowledge Aunt Lydia. Like, he wasn't acknowledging her or anything. Like, it was completely different. And so then he was like, you know, I said something to her, and I guess it caught her off guard. Whatever he said caught her off guard, because you know, they always do that blessed be and all of that, but I don't know if he said it out, if he said it wrong. I don't know what he did, but it caught Emily off guard. And then the next thing you know, he's at the door pretty much. He didn't tell Aunt Lydia to leave, but he was looking at her like, okay, you done? And Aunt Lydia was like, where's Mrs. Lawrence? Is she not going to come down? And he's like, no, she's not feeling well. You know, she's in the bed or whatever. And so Aunt Lydia has to leave, and then they when he closes the door, they have a scene where Aunt Lydia kind of turns back, because she knows something ain't right in that house. Like, you could tell, like, something's off. Anyways, so then he leaves because he's still looking at Emily, and then he leaves because his Martha has knocked something over. And so he goes back in there to her, and he's like, what does he say? Oh, he tells her, you know, don't touch my stuff. And she's like, it's in my way. She yelled back at him. He was like, do you want to beat it? And she told him, try it, old man. But it was the way she said it, y'all. It was like, nah, that was a little too saucy. It was a little sassy. So I'm like, there's some weirdness going. Like, it's some weirdness. Like, they got more of a relationship than what's being seen or whatever. So then Emily is just walking around, you know, she's looking at her surroundings, and she sees this comic. It was like a comic book. And so she bends down, and I guess she's kind of reading it. You know how you're looking at something, but you're not really looking at it. So she bends down, and she's kind of looking at it. And he comes in, and he was like, what are you reading, or what are you doing? And she was, she jumps because she knows she's not supposed to be doing that. But imagine how long it's been since she was able to read something. But she jumps or whatever, and you could tell like in her voice she was a little bit afraid. But he was like, what is the punishment if, you know, you're caught reading or whatever, and, you know, you can answer when you're ready. And she tells him, you lose a finger. And he's like, back in the good old days, you would lose a hand. And that's how that scene ends. So anyways, then we go to June in her room, and she's trying to do her milk, but you can see that her milk still isn't like really coming right. So then we see that, y'all, I'm looking on my computer because y'all know I'm at my mom's again, and I forgot to bring something to write with and write on, and she has nothing because she rarely stays here, but she has nothing. So anyways, so then she can't produce the milk and everything that she needs to. But then she hears the baby fussing, and so she goes down on the floor, and she can, you know, she can hear the baby better. So then she gets up and she walks down. She leaves the room, and she sees Serena holding the baby and singing This Little Light of Mine and everything. So the next scene, we see June going to the kitchen, and Eden is there. And I'm like, oh Lord, it is Eden. And but Eden makes she converses with June, and she's like asking her, does it hurt when she pumps? And June is like, no, it doesn't hurt. And Eden's saying that, you know, she can't wait until she's pregnant so that she can breastfeed the baby. And June is pretty much just like, I hope one day you'll get to experience that. And June asks, and then Eden asks June, she says, don't you think God will want a child raised by parents who love them, like two parents who love them? If you had a chance to love a baby, you know. And June just tells Eden, like, because I think June thinks Eden is talking about she and Nick. So June just tells Eden, you know, you don't have me to worry about. I won't even be here soon. But then June tells her, but if you can grab love in this world, wherever you find it, you know, go for it. And so then Eden tells June, have a good night, you know, blessed night and sweet dreams or whatever. And that was a little nice moment with Eden, because it was like she and June were talking on levels of two people who were not exactly happy in their circumstances. And I don't even think June realized what Eden was really saying, but they were not exactly happy in their circumstances, but they could relate on that. So then the next scene, we see Nick comes out of his place, and he kind of looks around, but I don't know. And they threw that scene in there, and I was like, what does this scene mean? But then, the next thing we see is that Rita is in the kitchen giving June a grocery list on things that they need back from the market. And Nick comes in, and he asks where Eden is. And, you know, Rita always got to do a little smart reply to Nick about, you know, I can't be watching her. You want me to watch your wife, too, with all the other stuff I got going on? Because Rita is pretty busy since the baby has been born. So June walks to Nick, and she says she hasn't seen Eden. Maybe she went to the mall. She heard there was a sale at Old Navy, and Nick starts to laugh or whatever. So for that moment, it was like normal. Speaking of Old Navy, I missed the flip-flop sale, and I'm like completely out of flip-flops because Hershey's is 8. Like every flip-flop I've had, Hershey's 8, and I like the Old Navy flip-flops. But I guess I could find me some dollar flip-flops anywhere. Anyways, so Nick tells her that the baby is beautiful, and he wishes he could hold the baby. He says our baby is beautiful, and he wishes he could hold the baby. And June says, you know, she wishes the same thing too, or whatever. And so then they talk about, you know, he tells her he wished they could run away. And once again, when Nick talks about this, he doesn't include Hannah. And I think that's what some people were saying in the first place. Like in all the, in the earlier episodes, some of y'all would come in and y'all would be like, he never includes Hannah in any of his fantasies with June. You know, it's just June and the baby or whatever. But I guess if it's not your child, that's how you feel. But then he says he wished they could run away and they could go to Maui. And June is like, babies eat sand, and he was like, no, our baby would be intelligent like our mother. And they're just having this nice fantasy moment. And there's anybody else like me, which is pretty much like, okay, I like to see this with y'all, but y'all need to stop, like, y'all, because y'all don't hear people when they're coming up on you. So you gotta stop having these little quiet private moments. So then, of course, the commander comes up on them, and he's like, Nick, and Nick is like, yes, Mr. Waterford, or whatever. And he tells him, Isaac is not on his post. And Nick was like, I'll take care of, I'll look into it, or whatever. And he's like, and he hasn't been there all morning. And so Nick looks back at June, because, he hasn't seen, Eden left early, and they haven't seen her. And so Commander Waterford's like, what's up? And he tells Commander Waterford that, I think we got a problem. So then the next scene, while Nick and June were talking, she also lets him know that she named the baby Holly. And he said he liked that name because it was after her mother. And she was like, you approve? It was like a special moment between parents. That's what was so sweet about it. So then the next thing we see, Fred is in there livid with Serena, and she's trying to get this baby to be quiet, and he's in there livid about Eden, talking about, I brought her here and I showed her a better way, and yada yada yada. He's just mad, which, because they know she's ran away, and they know she's probably ran away with Isaac. And I think what's really irritating him is that how easily, if June wanted to, she could have ran away with Nick. And I think that's what's really irritating him. But anyways, he's blaming it all on, he's mad at Eden about this. So, but Serena is pretty much telling him, you deal with that. Like, I don't want that around my baby or whatever. And she tells him, go find Eden, but she's not really getting involved with it or anything. So he walks out. So then we see Serena close the door. Oh my gosh, y'all, this scene right here. So then we see Serena close the door and put on, was it like a robe? She put on like a robe. Serena put on this robe, and I said, and I'm watching this, I'm like, she cannot be about to do this. Like, Serena, pull yourself together. You're gone, but you're not that far gone. But apparently she was, because she puts on this darn robe and she starts to attempt to breastfeed baby Holly. And I'm like, Serena, you have nothing to give this baby. What are you doing? And so then, of course, baby Holly starts to suckle, but then she gets frustrated because you ain't got nothing for her. And so then, and Serena was happy in the moment when she started to suckle, because I guess she's like, she'll never know what that feels like. But then once she started to suckle and everything, when she realized that there was nothing there, like there's no milk there, she starts getting fussy, and Serena's like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, you should be, because that was like the dumbest thing to do. I don't care how desperate you are to have a child. That's not your baby. And that was just, that scene just made me, it just made me cringe, because I'm like, there had some cringe-worthy moments in this episode, and that was like the main one for me. I'm just like, Serena, go put the baby down and get June so she can breastfeed this baby. So then we go to June is washing dishes because Rita is super busy, so she's trying to help Rita out a little bit. And Rita is like, oh, I miss Eden, because Serena is changing this baby's clothes every 10 minutes, and I'm super busy, like washing all these clothes and doing all this. And as she says this, Serena calls Rita in. So Rita leaves the basket of clothes in there with June. And when she leaves the basket of clothes, June goes over and, she takes one of the baby's gowns out and she sniffs it, because it's our baby. She hasn't had any contact with the baby. So as she's doing this command, and I'm like, June, you can't hear anybody walking up. Like, you don't hear anything. So as she's doing this, Commander Waterford walks up, because he's coming to get some ice. I guess he's, want some ice. So anyways, he comes up, and June says, what is it? June says late night or whatever, and he was like, I'm dealing with Nick's horrible wife or whatever. And I'm like, all the stuff you be doing with these girls, and you're calling, like, anyways. He says, we're gonna find her and bring her back. And June is just like, I hope she's okay. And he tells her, what would make someone risk risk so much to leave? And she's like, I don't know. He was like, you know, he looking at her like, well, he actually told her, don't you? Like, you were in that house. And he was like, where were you in that house? And she tells him the attic. So he was like, so you heard everything that was going on with he and Serena and everything. And she was like, well, my heart was pounding and racing so fast. You know, I honestly couldn't hear. And it was pounding and racing because she was contemplating killing them. But anyways, so then she tells him, because she was so frightened and everything, and he says, but you chose to stay, you were frightened, but you chose to stay there away from me or something. And he's just really obsessed with June. Like, he thinks honestly that she wants him like that. Like, he literally thinks she wants him like that. So then we see, but then she says, well, I had just lost, you know, I had just spoken to my child, and she had left, you know, and then I just wanted to spend a little bit more time with my, you know, the baby before she had to give the baby up. And so then he starts asking about how was it with Hannah? And she was like, oh, with Hannah and everything. And he wants gratitude is what he's getting at. And she tells him thank you for letting her see Hannah. And he was like, that's all I get. All I get is a thank you. And it was just so another creep moment because the way he was looking at her. And I'm like, sir, you forget you raped her. Like, he raped her. I mean, he's been raping her the whole time. But that last rape was completely different because she actually fought back that time. Like, she was telling you no. All those other times he was raping her, she was more complacent and everything. So even though it was rape, it's always rape, but she wasn't pregnant and she wasn't telling you no. Like, so I don't know what he's thinking. But anyways, so she tells him, let's play Scrabble then. And like, we'll play a game of Scrabble. I miss it and I think it'll be fun, don't you? And he's like, okay. But he don't want to play that game. But anyway, so the next scene is Emily in her room when a door opens and the woman comes in, and that woman is little. She's like really short. And I was like, oh, because I'm really short too. Well, I'm not that short. I'm like 5'3". So I was like, oh, okay. But she comes into the room and everything, and she's just like, you could tell she's like a kind spirit. And she was just like, hi, what's your name? And Emily says, of Joseph. And she said, no, what's your real name? And Emily tells her, you know, Emily. And she says she's Eleanor, and don't tell Joseph that she spoke to her because he doesn't like for her to speak to the girls. And she says, he knows what he did or whatever. He did something terrible. And Emily is like, well, what did he do? And she's like, he created the colonies. He planned it all. And that she told him when he was doing it, like, you have real people out there digging that poison and everything. Like, those are real human beings, and you got them digging that poison. But anyways, you could tell she doesn't like her husband. She blames him for, like, she has resentment toward. I don't know if she. We'd have to see her backstory, because just seeing that right there made me think, well, maybe she wasn't with this. Maybe because he later on tells Emily, when he tells Emily, you know, once he gets his wife in the room, because he comes in and he grabs her up and he tells her, go to your room and everything. And then he tells Emily to come down, and he gives Emily a glass of wine while he's drinking a beer. And he tells Emily she was a professor of arts and she wants everything beautiful. So I don't know. Maybe she was with it, and then when she realized how everything was turning out, she was like, no, I'm not with this. But then, so he's talking to Emily and he's asking her where she's from, and she tells him here, and he says, no, you're from Montana. He knows Emily's everything that has went on with Emily or whatnot. And he starts talking about, you know, she was a mother, she had a wife, she had a child, and it's like losing a limb. And I was like, well, maybe he's not bad. But then he started talking about her, but you know about losing a body part, because you know she was mutilated and with genital mutilation. And so I was like, but it was the way he was looking. I'm like, creeping. Creep moment number 3 or 4 in this episode. I'm like, I don't know. I don't trust him either. I don't. At first I was like, well, maybe he's different, but and he feels guilt about what he created. But I don't know. I think he's one of those weird people. You remember, you know how there's some people out there that like people's pain, or they like broken things around them, or because he has the Martha with no eye, he has Emily who's he knows has been mutilated, like, and he's with his wife who seems like she's on a little break, like a mental break. So there are some strange people who like people, and they're attracted to things that that have been some type of torture has happened to them. There are people that are attracted to that, and I think he's one of them. And anyways, so the next scene, oh yeah, and he told Emily they like privacy in the home. So the next scene is June being she hears voices, and Rita comes into the room, and she's thinking Rita has come from milk, and she's like, you know, she hasn't pumped yet. And Rita comes to tell her they found Eden, and June was like, is she okay? And Rita was like, they found it with Isaac. And so even Rita was concerned when the way she said it, and I was like, oh shoot. So then the next scene is Nick trying to tell Eden, lie, tell me you're pregnant. And she's like, they already took a pregnancy test, I'm not pregnant. And he said, tell them that, because he was like, listen, he's already gonna be, you know, they're gonna do what they're gonna do to him, so tell them that he forced you to go with him, and that you didn't want to, but he forced you to do it. And she was like, no, I can't lie or whatever. So then she and Nick have a moment where she tells him, you know, I want to ask you to forgive me. And he's like, I should be asking you that, because if I had been kinder towards you, you might not have felt the need to go off with Isaac, and this wouldn't be happening to you or whatever. He was like, she was like, I just wanted a family, a baby and everything. And he was like, well, we can do that. We can have that now. You just he wants her to lie, and she won't do it. And the scene was touching, but it was almost felt a little out of place as well, because he hasn't been they haven't had this, like, it at time. I know the scene was short, but at times it felt like a brother sister moment, but then at times it felt like a husband-wife moment. And I was like, this scene is just, it was an awkward scene, and it was a lot of emotion from Nick for Eden, who he really hasn't been feeling any emotions towards. Maybe that's just me. Y'all tell me what y'all think, because maybe that's just me. I just felt like it was a little out of place, their interaction. But I guess he was just desperate to try to save her, because he's probably thinking a little bit about himself and June. Like, this could be them. If they had gotten caught, or if Serena told anything, even the commander, when he found out that that's Nick's baby, this could be he and June going through this. So anyways, the next scene is Eden and Isaac being led down into so they're in this swimming pool area, and Eden and Isaac are being led to this swimming pool area, and they're having to climb up. And I was like, y'all gonna really make them climb to their death? So they're having to climb up this the diving board, climb up so they can get to the diving board. And so when they get to the diving board, I don't know what he was, a minister or commander, I don't know what he was, but he's like saying, he's reads a scripture or whatever, and he's like, if you just confess with your sins, he was like, you know, I guess they could have been forgiven if you just confess with your sins and everything, and renounce your sin. And so Eden won't do it. She refuses to do it because she loves Isaac and he loves her, and so they won't do it because they feel like in God's eyes they've done nothing wrong, because they truly love each other and they want to be married. And you know how back in the day, before, you know, the law, people could get married just by, you know, confessing that they loved each other and wanted to be committed to each other and married in front of God. And I feel like that's what happened with Eden and Isaac. Even though I was like, yeah, this character has just, like, I don't know. It was just, I would have liked to see more of the Eden and if you're going to kill them, give me more of their story before you just kill them off the, you know, the show. But anyway, so Eden's mom is there, and she's like, Eden, you know, like she's begging her to renounce it or whatever. But Eden starts saying love is what is that? Love is precious, love is kind. But remember, they said that quote when Nick and Eden got married when they went to the Waterford's house. So she starts reciting that, and then they had weights tied to them, and so they pushed the weights down and pushed Eden and Isaac off, and they drowned. Which I hear it. If that is not the, it's one of the most painful deaths to have to experience. And so when they push them and then they drown, there's everyone in this swimming pool area. Like Serena is just bawling. June is bawling. Eden's mom is crying. You know, everyone's just upset watching this happen. And Commander Waterford just looks over at Serena and looks away, and I'm like, he ain't feel nothing. I feel like he didn't feel anything. And I think because I think he took some of his resentment that maybe he felt on June and Nick and everything. He took it out on Eden, and unfortunately she paid the price for it. So then the next scene, Nick is sitting down in the kitchen, and June comes to him, and he's not having any of it. He like walks away from her and everything. So I guess because that shook, I guess it shook Nick, and he's just like, dang, that could have been us, you know. So he don't want to mess with her right now. So then we see June goes, she's walking past and she sees Serena's upset in the baby's nursery. So she goes in and she asks Serena, is she okay? And Serena starts quoting Isaiah 49:25, which to me is like, what I took from that quote, and you guys can read it. What I took from that quote is that she realizes that, okay, we've messed up, because Eden was like the purest of the pure for Gilead as far as being a believer and following the rules and wanting to do right. And she just happened to fall in love with Isaac. I wish they would have showed more of that story, but she just happens to fall in love with Isaac. And had it not been for Gilead, they probably could have been together and had a nice life with each other, you know. But because they're in this Gilead and everything, that's not how it works. So I took the quote that she was saying as being that, you know, she feels like God is gonna like put his wrath on them because of what they've done. I think finally it's starting to, I don't know, but I might be overthinking it, but I feel like finally it's starting to dawn on her what exactly is going on. So then Nicole starts to fuss, and June was like, let me go and get you a bottle, but she was like, no. And she walks over to like the feeding chair, and so June sits down and she lets June start breastfeeding Nicole, and that was the end of the show. So anyways, tell me what you guys think. I know the video is a little bit long. It's longer than no, it's about regular, but it's gonna be a little bit longer. So tell me what y'all think. Did y'all see the next episode? Somebody in the comments, like maybe 2 weeks ago, I can't remember your name, I'm bad, y'all. Somebody in the comments was like, would you think the commander would get rid of Serena and then make June his wife? And I was like, oh, that would be interesting. But I didn't really, like, I thought maybe that's like a 2% chance that would happen. But seeing this next episode, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Seeing the preview, that might actually happen, because it looks like he is called people on Serena, and he is trying to make June his wife. And then we saw Emily, and something weird is going on in that household down those stairs. And I'm just like, oh, what? I can't wait. And it's the last episode of the season. So finally, we might get a direction on where next season is going to go. Because this season has just been like a loop. It's just been all over the place. Like, what's going to happen next? You never know. So y'all tell me what you think. I hope you have a great oh, do y'all watch Harlots? I watch Harlots. I think I'm going to do reviews on Harlots. Anyways, I hope you guys have a great rest of the 4th of July. Bye.